Hi guys, Mr. KJN here. So here we are, stuck at home. Coronavirus is affecting everybody in many different ways. So the event at Clacton, which we would have been going to this weekend, has been cancelled, which is fair enough. Cars all ready to go. The weather looks like it's going to be fantastic. It would have been an amazing event. Unfortunately, the situation is what it is. The car's all prepped, ready to go. So what I thought I would do with the time is walk around the car, show you the suspension, show you the brakes, show you the engine, show you what fuel we're using, what tyres we use, and just some of the things we do when we come in from a stage for the service guys to prep the car before we go up to the next stage. So I hope you enjoy. Here we are, we've just driven the car back in from a stage. To get the car up on its stands, we have to basically use these little thin ramps because the car's so low at the front. So what we do, we have two of these for the front wheels, and then the car drives up onto these ramps, and then that allows us to be able to get the trolley jack under the front end, so we can jack it up and get them onto these triangle stands. Once it's up on the jacks, the guys will, obviously, as we said before, check the tyre pressures. That's really important. I want to know what they are. If they're running at, let's say, 30 psi and we've just come out of a stage, I'll probably want them dropping down, so they'll be running at 28 maybe during the stage, 27, 28, so we drop the tyre pressures down to a more acceptable level to allow the car still to work on the tyres it's on, for example. They would then obviously take the wheels off. They'd check the front suspension, four corners. They'll check the brake lines to make sure there's no leaking brake fluid. They'll check the fuel lines. They'll check the oil level. They'll check in the engine bay to make sure there's no oil leaks. They would also then ask me how much fuel they want, or I want put in the car, and I'll then tell them how much fuel, and then they'll pump the fuel in, which is usually the last thing we do once the car's finished work time. We don't put any fuel in the car for obvious reasons until the guys have finished working on the car. The wheels go back on, cars drop down. They'll use a torque wrench to do the wheel nuts on the car, because we always torque them up to make sure they're all the right torque setting. The wheel nuts, we don't want a wheel coming off, obviously. So then the car's then prepped, ready to go back out to stage. We get a certain amount of time to do it. Usually, a lot of events are only 15-20 minutes, some are longer, so it's usually quite chaotic for a period of time, and then we go out and then it's quiet for probably an hour or 2 hours, and the service guys are just kicking their heels. It's actually better nowadays because a lot of the rallies we're doing are live streamed, and there'll be TVs, screens up around the service area, so at least the service guys have got an opportunity to catch up on the information, what's going on, so they can see. They can also see what stage we're at as well when they need to be ready to accept us back in again. So here we are, laid underneath the car. You can see the exhaust pipe over my shoulder. So when we first had this car, it didn't have this silencer box here. This was a straight through exhaust. So in the UK, to go rallying, we have to be under a certain dBA, so that's a noise measurement. So we were like running at, I don't know, 113 or 110, and we have to be at, I think it's 98 dBA. So we had to put, unfortunately, this silencer in the exhaust system. So if without that in, it changes the exhaust note again, and it becomes even louder. But to race, we just had to put the right exhaust pipe in it so we can get through scrutineering. So hence the reason there's a silencer there. But effectively on the championship car, when I got it, that never had the silencer on at all. Again, still underneath the car, you can see just here this big panel, this panel here is the sump guard. So we don't have to run one, but it's advisable to run one. The idea of that is if we end up running over, I don't know, anything, go off road and there's a tree stump or a block or something there, effectively we don't knock the sump of the engine out, and lose all the oil. So it protects the engine sump, which allows us, if we do go off and it doesn't do any other damage, we can still keep going on the event. This guard here, as you can see, this is another important guard. If we didn't have that on, underneath here is the fuel tank. So the last thing we want to do is, if we end up going off road or anything, is puncturing the fuel tank. Again, that'd just be a complete disaster. So we run this sump guard here for the tank in conjunction with the sump guard on the engine. So effectively, it's just protecting the underneath of the car in case we have an incident. If you have a look there, reference the markings, paint markings, you can see there's 5 or 6 paint markings there on critical bolts that I would want checked when we come in from doing a stage. And if we find, for example, that the paint here is cracked or it's out of line, you can see we do it on the base of the chassis, and we do it on the bolt head. So if this is broken, this line which connects the two components, then we know the bolt's moved. So we would need to then just check that, tighten it back up, or find out why it's moved. And that's why we put the paint on it. But I could quickly lay underneath this car within a couple of minutes and check all those without putting a spanner on them and go, they're fine. And we can move on and do something else on the car. Another detail change on this car from what you would see on a standard car is this adjustable top mount. For a certain event, we can just do some adjustments there, as well as adjusting compression and rebound on the suspension itself and the spring. We can also adjust the top mounts. So as you can see, there's quite a few little adjustments you can do on this car. A safety feature that we touched on the last video I did was about the fire extinguishers inside the car. So externally on the car, if there is an incident and we can't put the fire extinguishers on, or we can't stop the car for whatever reason, we have to have means externally for a marshal to come along and be able to either put the fire extinguishers on and or stop the car. So this one here is for external use for the fire extinguishers, and this one here is an external stop button. So in an incident, if we cannot stop the car and it's still running, obviously there's still fuel being pumped to the engine. The marshals then would come and they would obviously be able to press these two buttons without getting in the car. They don't need to lift the bonnet. This is all accessible from outside the car without lifting the bonnet. So literally just press the buttons, put the fire extinguishers on and turn the engine off. Lights. Without them, you ain't going racing at night. I cannot tell you how bright these lights are. There's 4 of them, and these are HID. Actually now you can get LED lights, but to have 4 of these lights on this car on at night, it's like someone's turned on the sun. They are that good. You need them because you tend to find when you're going down a lane, for example, you get dark areas on normal lights, and you need that distance because you're going, obviously, you know, so much faster than you would do in a normal car, and without having really good lights you can't see into the distance. So having these lights which actually pierce as far as you can see into the distance, it gives you such clear vision, which gives you that confidence you can actually keep your foot down and keep powering up to that corner before you have to make your braking adjustment and turn the car in. So without lights like this, it'll just be hard work. So we also changed the lights on the standard lights, and we've also got lights that go in these holes as well. So we're trying to get as much spread of light in front of the car as possible to give us the best opportunity to see whatever's coming up in front of us, because trust me, when you're racing at night, if you haven't got good lights, you just can't put the confidence in, and to go quick you've got to be confident. So hence the reason we use these lights. Now maybe in the future we'll upgrade these lights and go to the LED lights. The advantage of doing that more than anything is they're usually smaller and it's a lighter unit, because these are actually quite heavy. Although they're very, very good, they are quite heavy. So maybe in the future we'll go to LED lights. Brakes. Brakes on the R2 are not your standard road brakes. So these have been upgraded now. I mean, when you get on stage, we're running a competition brake pad, and these brakes are phenomenal. Obviously, when you've got increased horsepower in the engine, you need to upgrade the suspension and the brakes. So this is the Evo spec Twingo R2. This is 300 mil diameter brake rotors. We're running the Brembo 4-pot calipers. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 pistons in here. So when I put my foot on the brake, there's so much braking energy with these calipers in here that, you know, it just does a fantastic job. You can leave your brake in as late as, well, you can leave your brake in later than you feel you should do, and you're still going to be able to stop the car in time to make that corner. We're running vented discs, as you can probably see through here. That just aids to keep it cool. And you can see just in the front grille here, there's a hole in the front grille. So when it's really hot, a bit like today, when we're running you know, hard stages, we can get air to come through the front bumper to feed into the caliper to keep the brakes cool, because the last thing you want to do is have brake fade. We're using Renault DS 3000 brake pads, which I just find they're brilliant. They warm up really quickly, you don't get any fade with them, and they're just a joy to work with. It just gives you so much confidence, and basically racing is all about confidence. To remove them, we've got these 2 pins here. Literally, we just tap the 2 pins out. We can pull the pad out and replace the pad. And what I'd usually do prior to the event is we'd probably get another set of pads. We would put them in, run the car down the road, because obviously the car's road legal, bed those pads in. So when we come to a stage, if we've got a point where, you know, we've done a lot of braking, they're long stages, and we're finding the brakes are wearing out too much, when I come in for service, the guy can just pop these 2 pins, pull out the pads, put the pre-prepped pads in, and away we go, job sorted. We're also running not standard brake fluid. Normal road cars will be running .4 brake fluid, so we run basically a race spec brake fluid, SRF, Castrol, or something like that as a race fluid, because obviously we're generating so much heat through the brakes that obviously that heat is going to be just by very nature getting back into the fluid. So we need to make sure that the fluid itself is a good quality fluid. Again, I keep saying what I've said before, confidence in racing is all about having the confidence that the car is either going to stop, it's going to turn, or it's going to handle the bumps that you throw at the car. So if you use the right equipment, tyres for example, you just know that you've eliminated all the stuff that potentially could let you down. And then it's just down to talent. It's basically down to whether you can handle it and what commitment you've got. If you prep the car properly, use the right stuff on the car, then it's not down to the car, it's down to you at the end of the day. And you know, that's where you can either win events or not at the end of the day. Brakes on the rear of the car, we're running AP brakes. So that's a 2-piston brake caliper, as opposed to the fronts, which were Brembo and 4-pot calipers. We don't need as much braking at the rear as we do at the front. Also, we've got a quick release to get the pads out, the same as what we've got at the front. We're also running DS pads at the rear as well. The brakes are perfect at the back as well. What you really want is a good handbrake at the back on a car like this, so you can just pull up the handbrake, flip the back end round, and away you go again. So that's the brakes on the rear. Suspension, we're running Öhlins race suspension, which is very good race suspension. This is one of the best cars I've driven suspension wise of all the cars I've raced. We have 2-way adjusters on the suspension. We have compression and rebound, so if it's a bumpy stage or it's a smooth stage, we can set the suspension up. And the front is basically the same. We have 2-way adjusters on the front. We have adjustable canister, and obviously coilover springs, adjustable platforms, which predominantly we would set the car up. You can set the car up on corner weights, so you can put it on weigh cells. Each wheel goes on, sits on a weigh cell with the car on it, and you can measure the weight of the car across the 4 corners. And then what you would do is you would adjust the platform height to just get the weight of the car on the 4 pads to be equal as best you could, and that way you've got a very well balanced car. So that's prep stuff you do before you actually go to the event. But if you do little detail like that, it just, again, I was talking about confidence earlier, it just gives you the confidence that the car's actually planted on the ground, and you're not worried about what the car's going to do. It's about you and what you can do with the car. So it's most important you get those little details right. The engine on this car is the Evo R2 engine, which means it's the 200 horsepower engine. So it's basically a 16 valve twin cam, fuel injected, race spec engine. You know, your pistons are changed from your standard engine, your con rods, injectors will be different, intakes obviously different. We have a completely different intake system. Timing is going to be different. It's going to rev differently. It's got a different engine management unit on it, and we're running race fuel. So effectively there's a lot of things from standard on this car that makes it looks like a standard engine configuration, which to all intents and purposes it is, but in reality it's had a lot of fine tuning done to it, which makes it perform like it does and sound like it does. It's not just a case of putting a fancy exhaust on it and expecting it to do the business. This is a serious car. This is a proper race car, and couple that with the sequential gearbox that we're running on it, the combination of the two, this thing's a weapon. Trust me, when you get in it and you get on that start line and you put it in gear and you pull away and you keep pulling those gears with that flat shift, you know, you're soon up to over 100 miles an hour very quickly down some very small lanes. And if you've never experienced it, it is amazing. I've had people come out in the car with me, co-drivers that have not done much, and they just absolutely can't believe it. They can barely talk, let alone give me directions and you know, tell me where I'm going at the next corner. So it is just, honestly, if you ever get a chance to have a go in a rally car, even as a passenger, have a go, because they are so quick. You just won't believe it. It's excellent fun. So, you know, just to go back to the engine, it is literally so finely tuned that it's not just a standard 1600 engine. You know, the standard one of these, I think, just on a normal R1 was 165 brake. So, you know, this is at 200. And to be honest with you, when you get used to it, you probably want more. You know, maybe in the future we might take off this chamber here and put throttle bodies on it. If we put throttle bodies on it, we'll have to change the ECU mapping of it. We might get another 30 brake out of it. That'd be phenomenal. The car's quick anyway, trust me, but another 30 horsepower and it'll be a completely different weapon again. Tyres. You can't underestimate how important these things are. This here has no connection to the road whatsoever. The only thing that connects this to the road are these tyres. You put rubbish tyres on, you're going to get rubbish results. Simple as that. I've talked about confidence. If you don't put the right tyres on with the right compound, the right tyre pressures, then you'll have no confidence whatsoever. You won't get the times, and possibly you'll end up going off the road. It's as simple as that. The tyres we use, we tend to use a Pirelli tyre because I like the feel of the tyre. The RKW7 is basically a soft wet tyre, so it's really soft. You can put your nails into the tread. Even now, it's, you know, okay, it's a warm day, but even on a cool day, these things grip right from the go, which gives you a lot of confidence, I can assure you. So what we would usually do on the first couple of stages, we'd probably put these on to start off with, get the feel for the car, and that way, you know, you then can build on the day and you know, you just keep performing better and better and better. So that's, and with these also, if it did start to rain, what we'd end up doing is cutting these. So when we cut them, we basically So we got 2 slots here. We would join this slot to the outside and join that slot to the outside. So when you're actually going over water, the water's got a way to be able to spread out on the tyre. Whereas if you didn't have these slots going either side, you literally would rise up and you'd go aquaplaning with the tyre. So by putting a couple of slots across here, you let the water get out from underneath the tyre and you still got your grip. So these are soft enough to grip, but you just need to make it so there's a bit more tread on it, if you like. If it's a really warm day and we're into the stages late morning, we would run the RK7A, which is a medium tyre, if you like, but it won't, as the day goes on and the temperature gets hotter, it won't actually end up slipping and sliding about. It'll hold the tyre better, the tyre hold better, it won't rub off, the rubber won't start rolling as it would on the softer tyre, so you just get a better grip quality as the day changes. And again, as I said before, it's all about confidence, so having the right tyre is paramount for confidence. The better the tyre you have, the more confident you feel, the quicker you'll be able to go, and it's as simple as that. The rims, these are the Speedline Corsa rims, actually came with the car. They're a nice rim, they're quite light, but they're very strong. So if we end up hitting a curb or something, it's not the end of the day, we're not going to break a rim. So, I mean, that's the worst thing that can happen. You clip a curb or something like that, you end up breaking a rim, and then you got to stop, change the tyre, change the wheel, and that could be 2 or 3 minutes lost, and that could be game over for the day. So a good strong rim is very, very important. And also I think they look quite good in black as well, and it's a nice style. Fuel for this car, it's not just standard pump fuel. So we're running race fuel for this car. So we're running on 102 octane. So a normal fuel station, you'd maybe get 99, 98 octane. It wouldn't be right for this car. This will cause a problem for this car because of the tuning of the engine, the ECU and the mapping. If we put normal fuel in it, we'll probably end up having an engine failure. So although this fuel is double the price of what you get at the pump, we wouldn't get very far without destroying an engine. So we run this, it's much better quality, it makes the engine perform better, and it keeps the engine safe as well, which is quite important because we don't want to have expensive engine rebuilds. For refueling wise, we use one of these fuel pumps, and it's just a case of putting the nozzle in here, turn the handle, and we pump the fuel in. It's the safest way of doing fuel. In the early days we used to use a jerry can and a funnel, but it's just too dangerous to do that these days, so we use this hand pump, so there's no real live fuel outside the car, and we'll always have a fire extinguisher available, and none of this would be done until the car's prepped by the service guys, tyres back on, car back on the ground, ready to go. It's one of the last jobs we do. So here we are with the car now with its wheels back on. So we're using a ratchet gun similar to this just to do the wheels up quickly, and then once the wheels are done, we use a torque wrench which is set to a certain torque, and we'll just crank the wheels up just to make sure they're up to all the same sort of torque setting. So as I said before, we don't want to lose any wheels and tyres on the stage. Again, keep talking about confidence, but if you know everything's done and everything's done to a certain tolerance, then you don't have to worry about the car. All you have to worry about is what's in front of you and what you're doing. So it's paramount. Car now back on the ground and ready for us to go racing. There you have it, a walk round of my Renault Twingo R2 car, a little bit of understanding of some of the extra components on the car, also a brief summary of what happens when we come in with the service crew, how we refuel, what fuel we're using, what tyres we're using. I hope that's give you a little bit of understanding of what goes on a rally, just so you got a little bit more insight. Again, it's a shame we're not actually in Clacton. As you can see, the weather's fantastic and we'd have had a brilliant event, and honestly it would have been so much fun to have shown you the footage of what we were doing. Going forward, the next event possibly maybe Jersey. They're still deciding whether that's going to run or not. Hopefully it will. If it does, we'll put an entry in for that, and my idea would be that we actually show you the build up. So we'll show you the prepping of the car, we'll show you actually transporting the car down to the ferry across to Jersey and all the build up, and we'll do some live streaming when we're actually at the event, show you some in-car footage and just make a whole weekend of what we're doing as an event. So keep a lookout for that. It may be Jersey if it's running, it may not be until next year, but the plan is to do a whole weekend's worth of information to be able to give to you guys, to show you what we're doing when we go out on event. So I hope you enjoy it. If you do, give us a like, subscribe to my channel, and we'll catch up with you soon.